one thing that I'm really inspired by is nature, and I just love it, and I just want to do what I can, in my own way to protect it. And, and I feel like that is helping those smaller organizations to, raise money for them, get new networks for them to support them. Because I understand how hard this gig is of like events and fundraising and communications and engagement. It's a pretty hard gig. And, I feel like if I can help them concentrate on like winning these campaigns, and protecting Mother Nature, that's my, life complete almost,
Today, I have a great conversation with Simon Harris. And if I could summarize this conversation in 3 words, it would be change, charity, and comfort. But before I get into the conversation, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the traditional custodians upon the lands which this podcast was created. And I'd like to pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Simon Harris is a really great person to know. And I hesitate laughing there, but Simon just brings a real smile to my face sometimes. So, change, charity, and comfort. Something that we can all work through, and something that's always going to be a little bit of a part of our life. So, this is Simon's take on those 3 things. It's a great conversation. We talk about a life purpose statement. We talk about reframing giving. And we talk about how to manage the feelings of needing a change and how to take those feelings and put them into action. Simon's just a great person for this planet to have, like many of the guests on this show. And he's doing some pretty incredible things, like helping with the Tarkana Ultra down in Tasmania, and also creating the next big thing to help our environment, and that's Run for Wild Places. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. It really is just that, a good old honest conversation with someone that I enjoy talking about, and someone that I didn't know all the things I now know about. And I really feel a better connection with Simon and the work that he does. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. I hope it sparks a conversation with someone you know as well. So if you'd like to, share it and just use it to help maintain the art of conversation. Thanks a lot. My name's Maël Backhausen, and this is Stokely, a creative endeavour to ensure we continue to connect, listen, learn, and evolve through the art of conversation.
Is it, you're in Adelaide Hills?
Yeah, I'm in the hills. I moved here about 4 months ago. And honestly, like, talk about change for me. It's just, coming from like the UK and living in Newtown for about 20 years, this is like totally different. I've had bushfires on my doorstep, a few weeks ago, and it's the threat all the time to drought. Like I had run out of water twice, and I had one of the pet donkeys die, and it's just been this epic kind of learning curve being here, but it's not fazed me at all. I just really into it. And one of the things for me about being here really is quite special has been like how the community has really rallied, particularly around the bushfires. It's been pretty extraordinary to see, because when I was living in Newtown, community did exist there, but in a very different way. And so here it's just been really kind of great to see, and to be honest, I really didn't pay a lot of attention to what was happening around the rest of the country, because there was animals wildlife dropping out of trees, and people's the grasses and the farms and wineries just going up all over the place. So it was just kind of like quite harsh. So I feel like Mother Nature is giving me this like whack around the face, just saying, you wanted this lifestyle, and now you've got it, and so it's been like pretty epic to live like in the hills, and I just love it. Yeah.
Far out, man. That is a warm welcome in many ways.
It really is. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
so what was your donkey's name?
The donkey's name was Pedro.
Pedro.
It was pretty hardcore actually. Like, I don't know, the donkeys are pretty big, they're not like dogs, they're like beasts, they're huge. And I came back after a run one day and I saw this thing which I thought was a kangaroo just lying on its back, and it was Pedro. And he was trapped under the fence and he'd been there all night. And any kind of animal that's big and down, generally, if they don't get up pretty quickly, it's, you know, it's an end of story kind of game. And, you know, it really like affected me because I love animals like with a passion. Like I find them so much more interesting than my fellow man, to be honest, because you know, there's just so much to learn from them, you know, and like having to hold him down, you know, while he was put, you know, the vet put him to sleep and give him loads of different drugs and stuff. It was just like, it was really like I lost it. I just never had like to hold, you know, this life kind of go. It just left, you know, and it just was like heartbreaking, you know, and it was just, probably it was way worse than the fires and the drought for me, you know, just seeing that kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of, I feel a bit emotional now talking about it, but yeah, mate, it was terrible. But it's made me pay attention to, like, you know, the other donkeys we've got and the alpacas and all the other animals and wildlife around. It's really made me open my eyes more and learn and pay more attention and stuff. And so yeah, it's pretty heavy, but it's good, and I guess it goes with, you know, living in kind of bliss, really. You know, animals, and you know, you don't see that so much when you live in the city, but you know, it's really part of everyday life, you know, around here. You know, it's that kind of But
so it's,
what a question to start with. That was,
man. Pedro, my heart goes out to Pedro. I hope he's. I don't know, what do donkeys do when they pass over? Do they reincarnate as humans, or I think Buddhism says that.
well,
Like your animals are a form before humans, or they're a lesser existence or something than humans. It's like a punishment. But I don't know. They seem to have things pretty nailed, but I think it's because they don't express, or they don't have conscious ability to like be objective and express things. But anyway, that's a bit of a text that I don't really know about.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to answer that question, but I like to think so. And you know, I think that animals definitely have huge personalities, and those donkeys are pretty stubborn, you know, and they've got a, you know, they really know how to show the way they're feeling to you, and you can tell. And you know, and to answer your question about I suppose like reincarnation on like the first day of the new year, we had a baby donkey born, like literally on the 1st of January, and it was his baby, and he's a boy, and he looks exactly like him. So you know, I kind of take a bit of like, my heart is kind of like, feels a lot better now that, you know, we've got another him here. And it was just like, you know, for me, what a great sign of that, you know, this year is going to be an epic year, that we get a baby donkey, you know. And so so I do think that, you know, he's come back in a way.
What do you think about animals with their own Instagram accounts? Do you think that the animal would actually want to have an Instagram account, or do you think it's?
I don't know. I don't know, because like I'm not huge on like animal Instagram necessarily, particularly like cats and dogs. But I do follow a lot of kind of farm sanctuaries, and I'm really into pigs. Like pigs for me are like the business. Like if I was to have one wish in the world, which is going to come true soon, and that would be to have just a pig sanctuary, you know, because I think they're the business. They're just so like us in many ways. So, you know, I do follow a few pig Instagram sites, which I just think, you know, that just makes me feel better, you know. But yeah, I think that probably, you know, most animals probably wouldn't want one. But you know, like I've also got a couple of animals that were all my life, I've got 2 parrots, and one of them's a cockatoo. And you know, I don't generally listen to people, you know, I just kind of do my own thing. And I was going to get a couple of pigs in Newtown, but, you know, not having much space, I kind of had to realize that people weren't making sense. So I bought a cockatoo, And she's about 8 years old now, and honestly, she rules my life. And as soon as she sees the camera, she's all over it. She loves it. She's just like, she hasn't got her own Instagram page, but I probably should give her one, because particularly birds, people they're really surprised, how amazing birds are when they meet my birds. They're just, they can talk. You can train them to do stuff in about 2 minutes, with seeds. Super intelligent, super engaging, just love affection. Most nights if I sit on the sofa, she's like on me, like on my chest, getting cuddles. And, so I think that, maybe I it might be a good thing having an Instagram account with more like particularly about wildlife in Australia, so people have a deeper respect for them, because I think there's so much misknowledge or lack of understanding about how unique animals are in Australia. And, being from the UK, I love my badgers and stuff, but, it's pretty limited there. But here it's just like a wonderland of nature, and I just love it. Where else in the world can you wake up and you can just hear animals? I mean, some days I'm just like, just shut up, just go back to sleep for a bit, but it's just a magical thing. I think Australia, I think we need to realize how fortunate we are to live in this land with such diversity in nature and birds, and it's just phenomenal. I'm so passionate about birds and stuff. I just love it. You've got me on the right topic, because I just love animals so much.
I mean, what is it that you see that firstly frustrates you with our relationship with the animals that we have in Australia or around the world, and then conversely, what do you see that fills you with like real hope and like gratitude that we have this amazing relationship with animals?
I think probably, to answer your question first, the positive first probably, and side of the question. I mean, I have a lot to do with people that are wildlife carers. I worked for Wires for a long time when I first came to Australia for quite a few years, and that's probably where I developed my passion for it. There's there's people that, that are working as wildlife carers. These people are honestly heroes of mine. They're just basically, their life is caring for animals, and they pay for everything. They take them to vets and hospitals, and just that's their life, and they're just so inspiring, these people, and they're almost like unsung heroes in a way, I think, and they just really care.
Well, what is WIRES actually stand for?
Sorry, WIRES is Wildlife Information Rescue Service, and I believe it's just in New South Wales. But yeah, I mean, there's other organisations across Australia like WIRES that do the same thing, and so I'm working with a local organisation at the moment, training to be a carer and helping them do loads of different stuff. So there's organisations everywhere, and I think, to answer your question about really what's positive, is like what happened with the bushfires. I think we as a nation really got to feel like the loss of wildlife, and really we're taking a stand by, I know organisations like WIRES and other wildlife carers have never known this kind of support before, and it's just, it's good and it's terrible it's happened, but these organizations, they do need the support and they do need the awareness, because they're really doing everything on such a short, with no money. And then, these people really, I feel like they're just heroes, and I just think they deserve more support and recognition, and hopefully I can maybe work a little bit to change that. I think, to talk about your point about what is, why people are quite distant from animals and food, and I guess particularly farm animals. It's just really, it's just become so easy and cheap to get anything, and I think that we're really guided by our tastes, and I feel like it's really difficult to change people and change their perception of something. I think, what's really inspired me so much, and it gives me so much hope in the last kind of few months, is is really how we're changing the world is potentially changing to support, farm animals, because, there are organizations like Impossible Foods in the States, which to me, that's, that is an organization that's really giving people plant-based foods that taste and smell in every way like pork and beef, and even I think that's doing fish now. And to learn that people are buying this in huge chains like I don't think McDonald's, but it's in the other one. What's the other one called? Burger King. To serve like burgers, and apparently they're the number one bought burger now or something, and it's just, that's phenomenal, and that's just that's how we're going to change the world. The world we're in is like by using our power and capitalism to change. I think that's the only way to change. And I think we're just so distant from like the reality of what happens, to animals and food, and it's kept behind closed doors. And I think most people, if given the option, said, I know you love the taste of meat, but would you want to try something else that's exactly the same taste? And I think most people would probably say yes, they would. That's really inspired me. And I don't know. I think there's a huge shift happening, and I'm really inspired by it. It really gives me huge hope.
Yeah, I think all of that work that's being done by these companies is pretty incredible, and it really is happening on such a exponential level as well. Like the change is just incredible. I mean, for me, I started eating vegetarian 5 years ago. And even, once you start to do that, I guess the information that you see about that kind of a lifestyle becomes a little bit more relevant, and you see it a bit more and look into it a little bit more. And over the last 5 years, it's been incredible. And you can tell it's just exponential, which is absolutely right.
I mean, I saw for example, I saw Snoop Dogg was like promoting one of these companies, and he eats like the Impossible Foods and doesn't eat meat. And I just think that is just like, from someone that's an ambassador, is pretty big, in terms of, I just think this shift, you're right, is really happening, and I think but you have to play to, I guess to the strength of what people want, and people do want to taste meat, they want to smell it, they want to, so it's super intelligent, and I'm just humbled by people that are doing this. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, big shout out to Snoop Dogg. I haven't done that on the podcast yet. That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome job. Super proud.
Thanks a lot, Snoop D-O-G-G. Tell me more, Simon, about this epic change that you are going through at the moment. Like, I imagine that being brought up in the UK and coming out to Australia has been just one of many big changes in your life. And like, how do you start to manage change differently due to experience?
That's a good question, and it's definitely something that I might sound all over the place trying to answer. Someone said to me recently that generally, if you're working through something or as an idea and you find it quite hard to talk about, it's generally a good idea, because you're not quite there yet, so the process is happening. But you're definitely right. I'm going through a change that probably, it's immense. It's happening like now with me. And if you probably had this conversation again in a year, it would be, I'd be a lot further on with it. But for me, it really started, I guess, a change really. I mean, my background is I've worked in philanthropy and fundraising for about 20 years, and it's an amazing, rewarding thing to do. And, asking people for money to make change. And it's a really great relationship exercise, and I really love it. But I sat in Newtown at my job, which I loved, and I was reading this report by I think it's one of the biggest kind of, I guess, foundations, gives hundreds of millions of dollars away. And I saw the report that the year before and all the years before that, they'd only given something like 0.5% away to conservation, wildlife and environment organizations. And it really jolted me. And it really was like, this is just, I just don't understand, why we've got this kind of disconnect with where we live. And it really was quite profound. And then I think it was either that night or the day after, I was sat with, next to my, very cozy, next to my open fireplace, drinking a red wine, and watched the Patagonia video on the Tucana. And honestly, I mean, you've obviously seen it, but it just jolted me so much. I couldn't really get over what I was seeing, and in a way that it just made me. I rang the guys the next day, the Bob Brown Foundation, who are the organisation that are campaigning to protect the Tarkine, and I just said, look, I just want to create this run for you, and I've never created a fundraising ultra marathon before through a rainforest that needs protecting, but give it a go. And it really, the change really started from there, really, to be honest. And I quickly resigned from my job and then decided that I wanted to move somewhere that was much more aligned to where I want to live, and that's where I'm at now. So and then I've just become much more attuned to what I can do using my skills to support people that are doing like epic stuff. And I'm jumping all over the place because that's just my life at the moment. It's just really all over the place, but in this way that I'm doing stuff now that I really feel like I'm doing the right thing. So I'm in this place in my life where I've kind of like learning to live with a lot less, but I feel like I'm doing like so much more. And it's, I guess what I did, it sounds a bit, I don't know if it's weird, but I don't care because it's, it's who I am. I created this life purpose statement, which is a few paragraphs long. And it basically just really, stipulates what I want to do and what my guiding purpose is. And really, it's changed everything for me because I was definitely someone who would just do everything. I'm so like, I'm not a deep thinker, to be honest. I just do stuff. I'm just like, I've got to get out there and do stuff, and I don't think about stuff. If it could work too much, I just do, and this purpose has allowed me to kind of like be a bit more aligned with my true values and to be able to say no. I mean, I recently got offered a job, which, is kind of it was a good job, but I mean, you could probably tell by the way I'm talking that it just was like, nah, it's all right. I could have done it. I could have kept on doing what I always do. But when I reread like my purpose, I just decided, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm so relieved that I didn't, because now it's kind of, I'm able to kind of keep working with the Bob Brown Foundation and to protect the Tarkine and other new initiatives. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, Mel, but it's just, this change, it's constantly something that I feel kind of, I do have an anxiety and nervousness about it, probably is probably the right word, but in a way that nervousness is probably something like, it's probably the pointer that I'm doing the right things in life, or I don't know, but I'm enjoying the anxiety.
I guess that definitely flows on to what I want to kind of dig deeper on for that, because I think we can be quite distracted by so many different things these days, and I think to sum it up, those distractions can really take us away from what we really are feeling. So my question to you is, what is it? How can you explain the feeling of knowing when something is right and knowing when something is most likely wrong?
It's a great question. And I think with, I'm the really young age of nearly 44, and I think great things happen when you get in your early 40s because you don't really care so much and you feel comfortable. But, for me, it's one that's taken this long to learn, and I'm still learning it. For example, when I worked, as much as I did enjoy fundraising, really, I was really unhappy doing stuff like that because it was going to work, having to kind of, for me, and I'm not criticizing the way that people work, but for me, like going to work 5 days a week, getting dressed in a certain way and having to be a certain person was never right. But I was quite miserable, but I never knew why, and I think that, the normality is to go to work. And obviously for some people it's fantastic, but for me, it never really was. So, and I really suffered for a long time thinking that why is it that I'm, miserable doing these things that are quite inspiring, and I'm, working with amazing people. But essentially it's like, that was always someone's vision. I was always working for somebody and for a greater cause, of course, but I always felt that that's just never, it wasn't right for me, and, I'm definitely someone that I like to be visionary. I like to kind of make things happen. And, I'm not necessarily someone that likes to finish everything, but I'm a good starter, and I like to bring people with me. So I think that once I was almost like, now that I'm 43, I kind of know what it is that inspires me. I know what it is that makes me want to get out of bed, and it's, as I think I said before, I really feel like what I'm doing now, which I'm sure we'll get to, is really like in accordance to what I'm loving. It's kind of like I'm bringing all these skills that I've learned into one kind, into like me almost, and I feel like I'm shining because of that, and but yeah, the anxiety that comes with it is quite tremendous, because I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm self-funding things. I'm working pretty much on my own, I'm almost becoming a recluse, but it just feels right to me, and yes, but, and to go back to your point about like time and what you do is really important. And, for me, like one of the biggest things I'm working on at the moment, it's almost like a hobby really, is really how I get more time in my life, and it's a really difficult thing because for me, it's like habit changing stuff. And what I mean by that is, I like to have a gin and tonic at 5 o'clock, like a lot of people, but having a gin and tonic at 5 o'clock means I can't do very much after that time. So just kind of relearning behaviors and habits is something that I'm going through at the moment. And it's pretty big, because it's essentially like changing a lot about what I do, and I think, I'm someone that can just fill my day from beginning to end, but I want it to be generally full of like things that are going to move me forward, and so this year for me has really been about working, just trying to create more time and space, and yeah.
I think, like, what does it really matter if I don't change this one little habit that I do every day?
Absolutely. And one of the kind of, I guess a good part of that change that happened pretty much at the same time as I read a book by a guy called James Clear, which is, I forget the name, but it's about habits and stuff. And I'm definitely someone that will do lots of different things, like to start things, get really inspired, want to learn all the time. But then, what comes with that is like, you've got to have, great habits to make them happen. Whereas I would just kind of go full in and then, it would fizzle. But, I think that the key to doing things is really that, as you said, there's small kind of incremental habits and turning up every day to do small things, and I mean, my way is not the right way, but it for me, it definitely is. So, for me, I've got to do I have quite a big, when I wake up, I'm doing things, for those kind of few hours before I start work, because if I don't, I probably won't do it. And, having those kind of things in place just makes a huge difference to what I'm trying to get to. And I'd always be I want to be able to do a 60-second handstand this year, and really without any kind of habit in place to kind of get me there. And I think I've really recently, as part of this kind of thing that I'm going through, I've seen the power of just doing tiny things every day. It's just phenomenal for me, and I think that we often, I often get sold on the glory first, in being able to do a 60-second handstand, but really the reality of like getting to doing that, I know is kind of hard work, but through like habits, really, it isn't really, and I think it's just, it's really key. I think habits for me has been a huge change. I've seen a massive change in the way I am, and the way that I'm much calmer, and I can be much more. I've got more time for things, and I just think it's really key for me, for my life to be like fulfilling, I think, and to be one that I enjoy.
So, Simon, what was the author's name of the book that you read?
James Clear, as in a clear sky.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's called, I think it's maybe just called Habits. It's a fantastic book. It's really simple and it's really easy. And when you read it, it's kind of like it all just clicks, and it's not something it's not something with huge heavy text, and there's not lots of exercises to do, but it's just it really clarifies, particularly if you're someone that wants to get somewhere in your gut goals, whether it's work or your family or finances. In a way, it just really helps you, because you can see the mistakes in what you're trying to do. And that for me is really good. Like if I can see a mistake or an error in what I'm doing, it just really helps me put it into perspective. And that's definitely what this book does. It did for me.
So, Simon, to take you back to one thing you said just recently, and this is why I think it's so great to be able to have the opportunity to speak to older people like yourself, because
yes, yeah,
I think you can definitely help me out here, and I think you can help a lot of people out here with your wisdom, sir. You said that now that you're in your early 40s, you generally don't care so much about other things or what other people think and love and all the other concepts. But like, if it is possible to fast track it, but how do people fast track their way of thinking to become a lot more not interested or not affected by what other people think and not care so much, like you say?
Yeah, I think probably a way, I'm unsure of how, because I didn't fast track it, unfortunately, but I do think that really if I had have voiced it out to myself and to others, which I have now, is that if I did know, if I was much more aware to how to vocalize what I want in life and what I think to be true, and what I want my future to be, I think that would have helped me really fast track a lot quicker. I think that's been a really important thing for me, is really being able to vocalize what I want in life and where my values are. And I'm really happy for my beliefs to shift. And for me this year as well, I mean, it's not that I don't care what others think, because I do, but it's more that I need, I really want, I'm spending a bit more time, I guess, kind of understanding different people's point of views a little bit more this year. And it's really challenging to do, because I'm really, my camp is, I'm passionate about animals. I'm passionate about the environment. I like to go, buy secondhand clothes. I like to eat well. I love buying local. I'm really kind of like pinholed, and I'm, so me this year, I also trying to like look at more people's point of view, because I think that I've become a bit pigeonholed potentially myself, and I think that's an ability that I don't necessarily have it now, but it's like it didn't enable me to kind of fast track where I'm at, probably potentially, because I'm really just like, this is what I am and this is what I think, and and I think it's a really a strange thing to go through, but I think that, to answer your question, it's really about just, I think for me, it's like really knowing what it is you want to achieve, and being okay with that and voicing it to people, because that's a scary thing too, because when you tell people, we don't do that very much, I don't think, and I don't think we talk very often to each other in a deep way, very often, and I think what's been really special for me about being here is that a lot of my friends have come here to stay for 2, 3, 4 nights at a time. And, after the first day, we kind of talk and get all the kind of usual stuff out of the way. And then, after that, the first day, things break down a bit and we start to talk about the things that really matter. And I just don't know if we probably do that very much, that kind of deep thinking, talking with each other. And I think that, it's been really fantastic to share really where I'm at with people and what I want to do. And I think that's really probably for me has been a really massive turning point and kind of enabled me to kind of just move forward a bit, I was probably all over the place, but these questions aren't necessarily that I always have answers, because we're all different. And I would, throughout what I'm saying, this is all relevant to me, and I don't want to advise anyone, but, I just think it just feels to me so good to know for the first time where I'm going.
So this life purpose statement that you wrote out, how did you come to know about that, or how did you come to think that was a good thing to spend your time on doing?
I guess I needed. I'll step back a bit. So as I said before, I'm definitely someone that will take on lots of different things and just say yes to a lot of things, because I love trying new stuff and being with people, and but what comes with that is just really something that really gets in the way. Often it's always at a detriment to myself, and you've got to obviously look after you before you can do anything else. Another key learning there, by the way, Mael, look after yourself first. So I suppose that I got to one day last year, I wouldn't say I broke down, but I just really got to a point where I couldn't, the world just felt really messed up, and my ability to do anything about it felt really small. I just felt tired. I just felt compromised in a way that I never felt before. I'm not sure if it was a panic attack, but it felt something like that. It just felt, I just really just could not move forward. And probably I didn't really share that with anybody, and probably should have done. And I guess that I just gave myself I took myself away on my own for a couple of nights in the Blue Mountains, just sat there with myself and just kind of made notes of really like what it is important to me, because I really realized I had to start understanding it and saying no to stuff and just being a lot more focused. And I suppose that for me really, it kind of developed itself. I put things like kind of keywords and kind of values down, and how I want to change the world and what I want to learn. And it just kind of created itself, for me in a way that was just really organic. So it wasn't like I read something or I copied someone else's, or it just kind of came with just a bit of writing and spending some time with myself, which I don't tend to do, or I didn't then tend to do a lot of. And it just came out really. And, and it changed, sometimes I'll look at it and I'll change a few things, but in the main, it's really pretty set, and I think I think that with any kind of epic change in life, it's often when huge things happen to you, we never change. Well, I don't change when I'm comfortable, and I think that's where this kind of came about for me. It's just creating this kind of, what you really call it, but it's, I guess, it's a guiding principle for me. But it just felt pretty heavy, and I hate feeling like that, and it just happened.
That's no, I mean, I'm almost feeling what you must have been going through right now. I think it's super interesting to to again kind of hear that experience from your point of view, because it's certainly something that I'm sure a lot of people have felt before and maybe not have had the kind of knowledge on how to deal with that at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing it, because I think it definitely is a guide to maybe even just give people a little bit of an insight to what could be done differently. I mean, I see that this like life purpose statement, as you described it, is so similar to like a mission statement of a business. And quite often that is one thing that businesses spend a lot of time trying to get really succinct and try to get really accurate, because it's something that you can always refer back to, and it helps you answer 99% of the questions that you face. If you have something that you're stuck on and you refer back to this statement that you created from your values and morals and from your deep beliefs, then it's just going to allow you to see more clearly at the question, like see the question a lot more clearly, and no doubt just see the answer, the right answer for yourself. Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. How long did it take you to kind of from start to finish? I mean, from this kind of experience of being kind of like a little bit like emotionally overcome to really kind of having almost like finished product. How long do you think you spent?
I'm unsure really, because with that during that time, it was just time went pretty quickly, to be honest. So, and I think in terms of like what I drafted, in terms of the kind of key headings that I created, in terms of what I, how I want to change the world, what I want to learn, all of these key things, they were pretty quick, because instinctively, I knew what they were, and then it just took a bit of crafting to kind of put it together. And it probably, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to do this. It was kind of I just kind of needed to put things down that I was. So I wanted to like put things down that would really, so I could almost like be go, am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? And then I realized that when I kind of had these kind of key headings and things, lists almost, and things I wanted to do and achieve, that it kind of made sense that, I put it in a way that's not a checklist. It's a way that's actually, it's a narrative, for me, that's something that I look at almost every day. And then it's not something that's, I guess, because, checklists are fine, but there's no emotion behind that, necessarily. So I guess it was a pretty quick experience, because I essentially know who I am in terms of, and what I want to do. But like, and that's where the kind of change has come, is like I'm more connected. I'm so connected to that now that, it's which I wasn't before. And like, when you're doing things that you don't want to do, or you don't know why you don't want to do them, when you don't want to do it. And I'm pretty like, I'm a fire sign. I'm pretty good with my speaking what I feel, and and I just don't like to be in an alignment with. I like to be in alignment, and it just feels wrong. And I think we all know when it is, and I'm not one that wants to compromise. I don't like it. I hate it. I'm not someone that likes to bend that much. And, and I think I spent 43 years essentially doing that quite a lot, and it just took it was quite a quick exercise. And, for what the value I've got out of it, it's been pretty, quick as an exercise.
So where has that brought you to now? What are you working on that you can share with us that you feel like now aligns to your statement?
Yeah, I guess a year or so on, I'm completed the first Takana Ultra event with a great guy called Lincoln, and it's been super successful. And then Matt, talk about really getting yourself into an experience. You're creating something and not really knowing what you're doing. So that the Ultra event in the Tarkine, raising money for the Bob Brown Foundation, and really it was such a learning experience. And I met some of the most amazing people. I obviously met you there, and some just extraordinary people I was humbled by, you know, and heroes. I mean, it's just probably like a word that I don't use very often, but I met some of those people, just amazing. And, you know, it really led me on to like thinking that I could do something bigger, you know, and something that would use my skills in fundraising and philanthropy and events to really kind of work with small organizations that are really punching above their weight, and they're changing and the world in their own way and protecting wild places. And, you know, one thing that I'm really inspired by is nature, and I just love it, you know, and I just want to do what I can, you know, in my own way to protect it. And, you know, and I feel like that is helping those smaller organizations to, you know, raise money for them, get new networks for them to support them. Because I understand how hard this gig is of like events and fundraising and communications and engagement. It's a pretty hard gig. And, you know, I feel like if I can help them concentrate on like winning these campaigns, you know, and protecting Mother Nature, that's my, you know, life complete almost, you know. And so, you know, one thing that's happening in April is I'm creating an event called Run for Wild Places, which essentially is a challenge event for a year, over a month, where people sign up and they choose one of 3 campaigns to support. So that's either fracking in the Northern Territory, save the dam in the give a dam in the Blue Mountains, or fight for the bite here in South Australia and Victoria. And then they, you know, they set themselves a target to run in nature or in their backyard, wherever, and then raise money for these organizations. And I'm doing this, I've done this really so I can create something that's going to support them, and they don't have to do very little to, you know, they can just carry on and pushing and trying to win these campaigns. And, you know, again, I'm super anxious about it. I put a lot of energy and time into it, essentially doing a lot of it on my own, you know, and it's just like, but it feels like for me a right thing to do, because, you know, if it works, it's going to be amazing, you know, and but if it doesn't, then it's good to give it a go, you know. And but it's essentially like, you know, it's really bringing my skills together in one kind of, I guess, one thing, you know, and I just working with these organizations, it's really inspiring, just keeps me going. Because, like, you know, for example, the Fight for the Bite guys, they're just tiny, you know, they've got nobody really, you know, compared to some huge organizations which are doing great things, don't get me wrong, but they're like, really, it's David and Goliath scenarios. They're just, you know, working with people like that, it's just really makes me get up in the morning, you know. It's just amazing, you know. So, I mean, that's one of the things, you know, it's one of the things that gets me up. But yeah, there's loads of stuff, you know.
So so Run for Wild Places is happening April 2020, and you've got like a website people can go to get involved with that.
Yeah, it's runforwildplaces.com.au. And, you know, I say to you, if anyone is thinking of it, you don't have to be like an ultra athlete to do it. You know, it's just sign up and do it. If you run 10Ks in a month, it doesn't matter. It's about kind of really, you know, going that extra mile. I should use that actually. Running the extra mile for, you know, wild places. It doesn't matter, you know, if you want to get involved, just do it. And it, you know, I think for me, I just really want to, you know, hope to like engage people in really what's happening and use the positive and engage people through this campaign, not just to fundraise, but also to kind of share a bit of stuff about what people can do. So, you know, whether people can change, you know, look at changing their banks, or, you know, go plogging, you know, which is picking up litter when you run, you know, just small tiny things that empower us, and, you know, try and build some kind of community around this, you know, and support. Because, you know, I really think that's why I chose, you know, running as a sport, because people generally, when you get in nature and you're running in nature, you really start to become more aware of it, you know, and you really start to take notice of it, you know. And I think if that's one tiny thing that can happen in this campaign as well, is like getting more people running in nature, that's a huge big win for me, you know, because for myself, like it changed it all. Like that's really where much more I started to, like 10 years ago, started to run and try run. I just became aware of the majesty of like nature. And I think that for me, and that's probably why people find it challenging as well, is because people are not going in nature and they're not seeing it very much. But trail runners generally really understand, or runners understand nature and the beauty of it and how amazing it is. And that's really why, it was one of the reasons it's a run challenge rather than a walking challenge, or I don't know, whatever.
I think it is really, really important to try and facilitate more connection with the outdoors and nature, because people start to have that connection and it translates into more of an emotional level connection. It's so very, very hard to turn away from. Like, you are not going to experience the elements of nature and forget about it quickly. And when you see something threatening those elements, it's going to really, really trigger that emotional response from yourself. And it's so powerful, because it's hard to describe, but it is us. Like, we are not separate from nature. We are one and the same. And once we get back to feeling that and embracing that and just understanding that on this deep level that exists within us, that it's very hard to articulate, it's going to just, like you say, it's going to really have a far-reaching impact. Like you said, just getting people outside and running more. If you don't raise a cent, but you get more people to do that, like, the positive outcomes are going to be incredible. I don't want to say we've started anything, but like there's this concept of, plugging, like you were saying before, and we came up with this like little idea of Take 3 for the trail, which stems from a movement called Take 3 for the sea. And it's incredible to see, like, once you do a small little act, like pick up 3 bits of rubbish and you throw it in the bin, the feeling you get out of it is, well, it's comical in the way that it really does make somewhat of a difference, albeit small. And it really does make you feel somewhat empowered as well, because you've got the ability, you've got the choice to walk past and not do anything, or you do have the choice to stop and pick it up. And, more power to you if someone sees you do it, because, you're not walking past that standard. You're stopping to make a change in the standard. And it's amazing the little vibe that the community has grown through just doing it and sharing it and being a part of it. And I think this concept you've come up with Run for Wild Places is exactly going to flow down the same path of empowering people to have an impact and create change through something that they more often than not probably already participate in. And hopefully, like you say, it just encourages more people to get involved as well. And the impact's going to be wide reaching and absolutely awesome.
I hope so, but you got to try these things, and if it works, it works. But I really, I agree with what you're saying about the plugging and Take 3 for the trails. It's just super great. I don't know what happens when you just do that, because you just feel like you're this superhuman being for picking up a bit of trash, and it's just, the psyche of it is really interesting, but it does really work, because it just feels like you've done something super easy but hugely impactful. And I think that's really what I want to try and do, is like using different voices and people and means, is to really show people it is easy to do stuff, and feel important and to feel empowered. I think we have lost that like agency a little bit, in terms of how we can impact the world, and I think, it's really interesting that, what's happening with the bushfires, and it's just people that the community it appears to me, particularly living here in the Adelaide Hills, it's come back in a huge way. And it's just, I feel like we need that. I want to be a part of that. And when I was, when we were at Bob Brown Foundation, the Takana Ultra, I just felt this intense kind of community that was just fantastic. Meeting so many truly amazing people, and kind of realizing there's so much going on, and it's not just me with this ambition, but there's so much of it, and I'm hungry for that. And I think generally, not speaking for everyone, but I think people are in a way hungry for that kind of connection to community and to each other a little bit. And I don't have the answer for that, but it's, in terms of how to build it, but it's something that is inspiring me a bit. How do we kind of work together more and build that? And, it's obviously not an easy question to answer, but, when you talk to people about it, it resonates.
Yeah, the Takana Ultra was an incredible experience. I've been to a lot of trail running events in my time, and there was something different about that one. It was really not just the trail race. There was definitely some sort of energy or some sort of vibe there that was just on a really, really, really meaningful level. I think it's hard to explain. It's hard to really kind of articulate to people what it was like to be there at registration the night before the race, because there was definitely a sense of greater purpose than we're simply here to run with a bib on. And there was almost like there was no boundary between anyone there. Everyone knew they were there for a really, really important reason. And it kind of just allowed this real free flow of communication and expression of your thoughts, and just created this really nice vibe that just everyone was able to feel, and you could see it and you could sense it. And then, it was incredible. I didn't expect it. I don't know if anyone kind of did expect it to be like that, but compared to a lot of other trail races I've been to, that's one that would definitely stick in my mind. It was pretty amazing what you created, you and Lincoln, there, and an idea that you came up with, and it was going to absolutely be nothing unless you gave it your time and effort. So thanks for that, mate.
Thanks for being a part of it. As I said before, I met some pretty inspirational people, obviously you being one of those, and I just was humbled by the whole experience, if I'm honest. It was a highlight, and I got to share it with one of my best mates and made some great mates, and also it just inspired me to kind of keep going, and, to realize that the community of trail running runners really are a fantastic group of people that are connected and passionate, and it's and our community. I think that's a really important word, and feel very strong about their identity, and I think it's kind of connecting them to like causes and actions is hopefully, it wasn't too difficult with the Tarkine Ultra, and hopefully it won't be going forward. I think that it makes sense, outdoor, I guess sports really just makes sense that it's one of the main groups that should and easily could really connect with campaigns and causes, and obviously do as well. So I just want to be a part of that, and if I can make things happen with people, then why not? And then kind of engage in the conversation with those that are doing stuff already. It's good. I'm loving it.
And I think also too, particularly I can really only speak to say like the trail running and running community is like, it's also so welcoming. It's not like, if you weren't born into the community, you can't enter the community. It is one of all shapes, all sizes, and it's just so welcoming. And the opportunity to get involved as a beginner, as a complete amateur, is so available. It can even just be done through the great initiative that's Parkrun, and let it spring from there. it's an environment I spend a lot of time in, and hopefully get to going forward for sure. And being able to link that amazing community with the communities that are out there helping to save the wild places that we have. Like you say, it just seems right. It goes hand in hand. It seems like such a simple, it doesn't seem like a simple solution, but it seems like a very rational step in the right direction if we want to help the places that we love to be in.
Exactly. I really agree. And I think, my playground for many, many years, and still, I miss that part of not being in New South Wales, the Blue Mountains, and what's happening there with the damming potentially of that is really that's going to shake up a lot of that kind of trails for trail runners, and impact in a big way, that community. And for me, it makes sense that hopefully, we can be more aligned to that as a community and support it, because it's where we're spending our time, and I think it makes sense for me, and hopefully it does for others, that, as outdoor groups, we are probably one of the most likely, and do make changes and support these organizations.
And so in saying that, how I find it very, very difficult sometimes to fundraise, like on a personal level. If I remember when I first ran a half marathon and first ran a marathon, I was like, oh, I've got to do this for a charity. Like, this is what it's going to be. I was fortunate enough to work in an office in London, and at the end of the day, it got to like 3 weeks before the marathon, and I just had been working with these older people, much older than you, Simon. And I knew that they were, they were good for a $20 note or a £20 note. And I knew, most of them were past their retirement age and then just doing their work for fun in the engineering office. So I just went to each of their desks and I said, hey, I'm running this marathon, come on, give me some cash. I've been working on this project with you for the last 6 months, and I know you got some spare cash. And I ended up being able to raise like a good bit of money from that, but it was only like largely due to the environment that I was in. How do you go about approaching strangers and also people to try and raise funds? Because I really do feel like it's such a tricky thing.
Well, this is probably that podcast in itself, but to simplify, the word, I guess, fundraising is probably, it does really frighten people, and I'm proud that's my job, and I do love it, and so, because it's essentially, it's a relationship job, and it's really about kind of finding out where people's values align, and then kind of connecting what you do with those people and making them feel great, and it's really simplistic, and it's really about being a really respectful human being, keeping people involved with what you're doing. But in terms of, to answer your question, probably about, I guess if you were to run for wild places or a fun run or whatever it is, or a half marathon, really what I always say to people is really, it's a game of, asking people, and it's a game of not policing who you're going to ask, because the people that will give you the most often will surprise you, so you might say, I can't ask him, I don't know very well, but, often like that person was really inspired by running, is really good, or loves that organization, and will give you like this huge donation. I'm someone that does these things often, so my friends are like sick of me, my family. But, sometimes, it takes me like 6 times asking, I don't care because it's what I do. But a lot of people, that's where they get a bit kind of, I guess, intimidated, because their best mate hasn't asked them for money. It hasn't given them money or ignored them. It's not that your friends and your family are ignoring you. It's just like they're thinking, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, yeah, it's coming up. I'll do it later, But, it's one of like many emails and posts and socials that they get every day and work. And it's just really, I use so much humor in my messages, but I do like message people like 6 times until I get something generally, and my friends will attest to that. I guess I just kind of think, you know, when people like from the Takana Ultra, for example, the runners at the moment, I'm talking to them a lot about this, and I'm just saying, look, guys, you know, you've just got to be bold. You're doing this epic thing. Just get out there and be proud of it, you know, and just keep asking, you know, and it does come, you know, and it's, you know, I always think you've got to think about what you're doing it for, and remove yourself out of it. And it's uncomfortable, but like, great things don't happen when you're comfortable, you know, and you've just got to kind of just be prepared to do it, you know, and just ask, you know, and because, you know, if we're trying to protect the Tarkine, for example, it's not going to happen from a comfortable place, you know, and it's just, you know, so I kind of, you know, that's really what I tell people. It's just be proud of what you're doing and just keep doing it. And, you know, for me, when I'm working with people, I always give them like the emails, I give them the text messages, and so they can just copy and paste. They don't have to sit there and write it, because what happens when people write it, they become a bit like, oh, no, I don't want to send this. It's asking, it's begging, and, you know, and so people just copy and paste. So it's my job to make it easy as possible for fundraisers, you know, and sorry, for people that are taking part in events. So it's just about being bold, and, you know, and just asking everyone, you know, and don't police that, and just keep going and asking, you know, and it's just, it always surprises people. And that's really great. And, you know, like the lady last year, Kate, who took part in the ultra, she hadn't really run that distance before, never fundraised before, but basically it's a combination of her like doing these both things. She raised like $8,000, you know, just by getting onto people all the time, you know, and she just, you know, I mean, I'm good friends with her now. She just relives the experience of like kind of asking for money, and, you know, and it's just, I guess it's really, you know, viewing it more in line of the impact that money is going to do, rather than give me some money, you know.
Nice, mate. I think that's perfect takeaways for being in that situation. It's like hearing that makes sense. It you know, it's not rocket science, but it is just incredibly helpful to view it in that kind of a way, because it definitely takes that emotional layer off, and you're like, it's actually, I don't come with this like anxiety and like fear of rejection, or, you know, you're trying to get someone on board to help you in the bigger picture, not help you personally to go and do this run. It's like there's a bigger reason behind the whole thing. And nice,
about making people feel good about the choice that they made. And when that happens, they just open up and do, you know, and they're not scared of rejection. And I guess that's probably the issue, you know, with us in life, is we're really scared of being rejected often, you know, and I think that it's really connected to fundraising, you know, even, you know, it is a challenging thing. I get it, but I always think about the end result. You know, what is it if, you know, we're trying to protect the Tarkine and shit, my ego needs to get out of the way a bit, you know, and I think that's what we've got to remember. We're not begging for money. We're trying to make a change. And I think probably like the word fundraising does have negative connotations because of that kind of request for you're really uncomfortable, you know, it's a really uncomfortable thing. But, you know, so is running 65Ks. It's way more uncomfortable than like asking someone for $50, I reckon. And as soon as you say that to people, they're just like, yeah, all right then, fair enough, job done, you know.
How do you vet companies for, you know, understanding, and I don't know if you do have an answer to this or if you've had experience in it, but how do you find out if a company is not just company, but foundation, organization, non-for-profit? Are there ways that people can actually like do some background checking on who they actually are and where their money goes?
Are you talking about charities or?
Yeah. I mean, anyone that you do donate to, because I feel like there is this like concern that charities don't actually use the money that you donate in the way that you think they're going to use it, you know, and there's all this talk of like only 10 cents out of the dollar will actually go and help that koala that got burnt in the fires. Like, how do you do a background check on charities or non-for-profits to understand if they are actually following through with what they claim.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, this is a question, or a rephrasing of a question that I've had many, many times. And obviously I'm quite biased to the answer. And there really is no way of like benchmarking a charity on their effectiveness. And I just don't think that can happen. And I can give you some examples of why that is true. And, you know, for example, you know, a charity should not necessarily be viewed as ineffective if they are putting money into admin or into growing their organization so they can have epic impact in the future. I think we need to rephrase the way we look at this, and it's not helpful for the charities generally, I think. So I can give you an example. World Vision, obviously we're a huge organization now, you know, but they weren't always a huge organization. But they decided years ago to invest heavily into getting onto people on the streets, getting people to give money regularly, once a month, small amounts. And, you know, it's an expensive exercise to do that. And, you know, if you would have viewed their income reports, it would have been quite, you know, wow, you know, they're spending a lot on admin here. But now, you know, like a few years later on, they're the biggest charity in Australia because they invested and they've got this huge amount of regular income that's, you know, having a huge impact overseas and in Australia. So it's a really tricky one to answer, and I think that we need to move away from it a bit, you know, and you know, charities generally are some of the most effective organizations in terms of, you know, profit margins and cost on ratios that you'd ever meet in terms of, you know, what they achieve, you know. So I think that it's not helpful, you know, to have this too much of a dialogue around it, you know. And so I think that it's a really interesting question, you know, but I feel quite passionate about it. It's like you really need to know a lot more about what's going on at an organization before you can really say, you know, I guess whether they're effective or not, you know. And I think giving like $100, yes, it's a lot of money, but the energy it's going to take sometimes to work out if it's got, you know, how it's being spent is, you know, you probably could have given another $100 to the organization, you know. But I just feel like it's a really hard, difficult thing to answer, you know, because there's no kind of benchmark to it. Sorry, that was a long answer because I feel quite passionate about it.
Hey, that was perfect. Like, honestly, that's completely made me look at it in a different light. And I think that is something that a lot of people probably need to understand. Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, if you take a snapshot of anything and look at it in that one frame, or that, you know, that one financial year, yeah, of course, things can look a bit skewed. But if you don't take the approach of looking at it in the long term, or really delving into their mission statement and what they're about and who they have working for them, it's very hard to see what the long-term goal is and what the stages involved in getting to that epic result or an epic outcome, you know, epic sized organization. Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Why wouldn't, you know, for-purpose organizations, you know, have the money to employ like really amazing top people, you know, and to, you know, really be able to have the ability to do that? Because it's difficult. It's an industry that's very difficult because, yes, it has amazing people in it, but you know, the salaries are so out of whack compared to other industries. So of course, people that come out of university probably aren't going to be attracted to work in a for-purpose space, you know, and I think that's the key thing as well. Is like, you know, when I invest in charities, I look at like really what are they wanting to do in the next 5 years, and if it is like to invest to kind of build a social enterprise that's going to kind of bring in loads more money every year for them, and that's what really makes me kind of support, you know, is that kind of long-term view. And I mean, yes, there's things like the bushfire that we should all, you know, we give to, but that is immediate. But a lot of charities are working in huge problems long term. But I just think the dialogue has to change, you know, about kind of what people, you know, donations and admin, and we should be, these organizations should bloody have as much money as they need, in my opinion. I'm biased, but, and be able to attract top, even more top people to the organizations to affect change.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of things. If you can go to the shop and you can buy an apple and there's an instant tangible result in your exchange for money. But something like an investment or a charity is something you need to approach with different eyes and just be like, okay, look, I'm going to give this money, but I'm not going to see an automatic return. And if the return that I do want to see comes in 5 years' time, like, you got to be okay with that. But it's just like, you do get that instant gratification of like, oh, I donated to a good cause, but like you've also got to separate from, I need to see an immediate outcome, because that is more often than not going to be the case. It's just approaching it with a broader understanding of how these organizations work. And, they're like any business. You go to, people are more than happy to give thousands of dollars to Apple every year because they kind of can see what's going on and they can receive an iPhone for doing it, And it's like a charity. It's kind of like, it's funny, framing it in that way, because they are probably working on equally amazing things and equally amazing, maybe not products, but community engagement and results for people that may need it. And there's a disconnect in terms of seeing that when you do exchange money and understanding that.
Exactly. And I think, going back to kind of those kind of questions that you posed about, ratios and admin, I mean, just think about the damage it does for the end, the end user of organizations, often wrongly are criticized, and I think I'm acutely aware of the damage it can do, and it's just have to be mindful of that too. And it's a topic that really does kind of light a fire in me, because every day almost, people say to me, do you get, when I was working, do you get paid for that? Do you get paid to do that? Because, I don't really, should you? And so it was a thing that happened, which surprised people, that, it was actually a paid job, when you work in an organization that has epic impact, that you should or shouldn't get paid. It's very interesting kind of like thought patterns.
It's now we've got on the topic. I can tell that you're passionate about it, and I am certainly also. It sparks so many questions, and it sparks so many feelings of like, oh shit, I think like that. Oh damn, that's uncomfortable. Like oh yeah, that's oh damn, oh geez, we're doing this all wrong. And then you start to think, but I just go to the petrol station and I hand them over $50 because I get to drive out and I get to move around real quickly. And you don't for 1 second stop to go, hang on, sir. Can you just explain to me, like, I'm giving you $69 here. Can you please explain to me what you're going to do with that? Is this going to go to admin? And is this like, can you break that down for me? Because, there is a Shell across the road and I'm more than happy to just step over there and give my money to them instead. Like, we never go through that. I mean, now we're like, well, this is the reality of it. You do that with a charity, like almost instantaneous for some people. And, interesting. Thanks for sharing that insight, mate, because that's a very thought-provoking topic.
And as you said, like, often it can range, it might be $50, $20, but that's what it is. Like you said, we'll go and buy a bottle of wine for 30 and we criticize it. It's not, just got to be careful about how it's phrased and where you put those questions. And because essentially, if you are, it's great, whatever you give, it's really fantastic. But, if you're worried about where your $50 is going to go, it's really, it's not the end of the world, because I can guarantee 99.9% of the time it's used so well, it's not even worth, thinking about.
Well, that's good, because that's going to give me a lot more time to dedicate to other more important things in life. And everyone who listens to this. Done.
I hope
Forget about it. Move on. Give him the $50 and move on. You don't need it anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Simon, thanks so much for taking the time to have a chat, man. I greatly appreciate you, and I greatly appreciate you and the work that you do. And I wish you all the best with everything happening at the moment. And yeah, like you say, mate, change, albeit uncomfortable. And if it is uncomfortable, is likely the better thing. So definitely keep believing in yourself and rocking and rolling on that path, mate. And of course, I'm here to use as a sounding board and reach out if you ever need anything, mate. But
don't worry, I will be.
Thanks so much, man. And is there anything else you can say?
No, I just think that, like you just said before, that, change never happens when you're comfortable. And I'm not comfortable at the moment generally. Obviously I've got to feel really grateful and got a great life, that things are shifting, and, it's really just get out there and make change happen if you need to. It's just, it feels good, but it's scary. But thanks for this opportunity to talk. It was really fantastic. And hopefully I didn't kind of too preachy with my passionate psalms about not-for-profits. But thanks for the opportunity, and and I appreciate you and what you're bringing to the world. And thanks, conversations like this, are rare. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk.
That's what it's all about, man. Making sure we don't lose the art of conversation. I'll chat to you soon, Simon. Thanks so much, mate. And keep well, keep safe, keep happy, keep uncomfortable.
You too.
So there we have it, guys. Change, charity, and comfort. I hope those 3 words now mean a little bit of a different thing to you. Or maybe you just got a little bit more information to help you put those 3 things into action in your life. Again, thanks for listening. I hope it helps spark a conversation between you and a friend. And I hope you can use this conversation as a way to help maintain the art of conversation. So, until next time, keep well, take it easy, and thanks a lot for listening. My name's Myal Backhausen, and this is Stokely, a creative endeavour to ensure we continue to connect, listen, learn, and evolve through the art of conversation.